This is a slide of a talk that I gave 3 years ago at A4M, and the most important thing is to see that I have been coming here for about 4 or 5 years and talking to doctors, and I really give every one of you in this room and every one of the doctors from A4M all the credit in the world for helping me on this journey of losing more than 120 pounds, and hopefully more. I mean, but even more important than that, I've been privileged to now take care of over 1,000 patients who are doing phenomenally well. I'll give you some of the data. We'll also be talking some science, and we'll also be talking about how you can implement a metabolic syndrome and HCG weight loss program into your practice. This is not rocket science. I think that's one of the most important things you have to know. And this integrates very well with the whole module of this weekend, which Dr. Pam Smith heads up and I think is absolutely phenomenal on the bioidentical hormones. And there's one big difference between the HCG program and the bioidentical hormone program. The bioidentical program has lots of learning to learn the program and relatively easy to implement with your patients. The HCG has very little to learn, but the difficulty comes in making sure that your patients follow the program. And both will be absolutely successful. I've known about this for 5 or 6 years. I want to tell you a little bit of my own background. And I was afraid to do it for the same reasons that many of the doctors in this room and many of the doctors around the country who I'm talking with were afraid. How could you survive on 500 calories a day? Isn't this dangerous? Aren't there so many side effects to HCG? Now, I find it interesting because these are the same doctors who had no problem, many of them, who were willing to give Meridia and all those drugs. They also were willing to give Vioxx, also were willing to give the flu vaccine. I'm using that generically, that somehow if something isn't certified by the FDA to use, maybe it's a problem. Or maybe we should think the other way, because bioidentical hormones is exactly the same thing. If you look in the FDA's regulatory actions, they say this doesn't work at all. But as practicing physicians, we have something even more unique. We know what works with our patients. 2 years ago in San Jose, I was speaking at an A4M meeting, and I met a classmate of mine who I hadn't seen in almost 40 years, a medical school classmate of mine. And she kind of looked like, there were only 4 women in our medical school class, so I would have been only off by, by guessing I would have known who she is, and I knew she wasn't 2 of the other women. And she looked almost exactly the same. Obviously a few years older, but she looked absolutely spectacular. She pulls out a picture and she shows me what she looked like 7 years ago. So it's now 9 years ago. And she was almost 100 pounds heavier. She now is about 130, 135 pounds and about 5'5". And she said to me, "Mayor, you've got to do the HCG for yourself." And at that point, I must have weighed about 350 pounds. And so she said, "Why don't you talk to some of the pharmacists here? Because some of the compounding pharmacists have now been able to figure out how to make HCG in a sublingual form." And so I talked to a few of the pharmacists, you know, end of September of 2009, I started on my journey of HCG. If you stick with the principles for the most part, you know, the 500 calorie program, the apples, the grapefruits, and we're not going to talk a lot about that, but we'll be able to help you with that. It works. It was so impressive that by the first of the year I figured, even though I weighed 275 pounds at the time, I had to implement it in my practice. And I had delivered babies for almost 40 years. So this is a radical departure. I actually wasn't even practicing that much medicine for a while. And so my daughter Jenny and I started the practice in March of 2010. And we've had the best time since. And we've refined it a lot, and I'll explain you everything we've done. But every speech is the same every time I get together with a new group of patients. And that is, you will know instantly if HCG doesn't work because I'll be the first one to stop the program, you know. And I've lost, oh my God, about 50, 60 pounds since we started in March of 2010. And I tell my patients the same thing. You'll be my inspiration and I'll be your inspiration. We have over 1,000 patients who've lost more than 20 tons. Some of the most proud statistics I have is I have more than 20 patients who've lost more than 100 pounds, including myself. Only one woman, but then again, I don't have too many women who are more than 100 pounds overweight. I have about 400 or 500 patients who've lost more than 50 pounds. We've only been doing it for about 20 months, 22 months, so I can't tell you what the long-term success is, but I'll tell you some data that's overwhelming. My undergraduate degree is in statistics, and so one of the things that was so dismal about weight loss is that the success rate runs minuscule. The probability of losing 100 pounds, and any one individual wants to lose it, is 1%. Now, that's not dismal enough. The probability of maintaining it for 1 year is another 1%, which means the probability of losing 100 pounds and maintaining it for 1 year is 1 in 10,000. Well, being a statistician, I would never bet on anything that's 1 in 10,000. And like so many of my patients, I tried Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem, Metagenics, liquid protein, powder protein, Atkins, with limited success. Never reached 50 pounds. 25, 30, 35 pounds. That's why I use the 50-pound benchmark. What's the probability if someone's more than 50 pounds overweight to lose 50 pounds? Not much better, 2%. What's the probability of maintaining for 1 year? 2%, which means 1 out of 2,500 people who are 50 or more pounds can expect never to maintain a 50-pound weight loss for more than a year. What can we provide you? Complete HCG package, and I'll go over what that is. Oh, by the way, we only do sublingual. I've partnered with a pharmacy. Dr. Mark Mandel is a compounding pharmacist, a lifelong friend, and he makes all different type of stuff, but in our program here, we only do sublingual. Why? Because clearly you're going to be able to get more people to do it, you know, and also I don't like anything that's by injection. You know, I'm nervous today, I'm also an attorney, to hand someone 20 or 30 needles to take home. You don't know what's going to happen to those needles. And that just really makes me, if they're diabetic, it's one thing, it's life-threatening, although all this stuff is life-threatening also. BIA machine, I'm going to explain what that is. Educational material, staff support. And here with me today is Brina Chandler, my head administrative assistant. Not only is she an outstanding administrator in our practice, but she's also herself lost about 45 pounds back almost 2 years ago and maintained every ounce of it. And there's a young woman, so you know, I'm jealous of her only because she did this when she was 35 years younger than me. Custom labeling. That's the other part of our company. We have a line of about 25 different natural products. We put them all together ourselves, you know, and we also will talk about the natural products that go along with the HCG program. Lab contacts, phone consultation and support. I personally, as well as my wife who's here with me, Brina, will be happy to talk to anyone, any patients. You know, we also training for your patient. What we've done is held many webinars, Skype, phone conferences as someone gets started. And we'll do that as many times as needed. There's no charge for it. Our goal is to get everyone started. My feeling is it's paid forward. There's not enough that I can say for my family losing over 300 pounds over the last 2 years and the changes. I was on blood pressure medication on and off for 30 years. Why was I off? Because I didn't want to take it, not because. And my daughter would come over, Jenny, and she would take my pressure and be through the wall and said, "Dad, you've got to be back on your blood pressure medication." I said, "I don't want to take it." And she said, "Well, then you've got to lose weight." And so I said, "When I figure out how to do it, I will do that." Insurance coding. I'd be happy to help you with that. We've got a lot of experience. We've had a lot of success. We've got a lot of information on that. I'll have a little bit here, but you'll have access to everything. The Eisenstein Clinic, I mean, really proud when a father works for his daughter, and that's what it is. People ask Jenny, what is it like working for your dad? She says, that's not the way it goes. He works for me. I love it. You know, Jenny lives next door to us, and she has 3 incredibly awesome children. You know, and if you want to learn a lot, know about HCG, you can ask her 16-year-old, 14-year-old, 12-year-old. They've lived it for 2 years. You know, and so. And also, I invite every one of you who would like to come and visit us in Chicago. We've had 20 or 30 doctors come and spend the day with us. You can just give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to set up a time. You'll see what we do in our clinic, how we see return patients, you know, and I can promise you a very good HCG-compatible lunch, which won't set me back very much. Some older pictures, and I couldn't get over how much weight my son has lost. Here's a picture of Jeremy, and that's 4 years old because that's Ava, who's 4, and he's most probably close to 300 pounds there. And the picture in the middle, that's my oldest daughter, Jenny, and you can see the picture of her, the one over here, and that's just a few months old. And my favorite picture is, and you can see the picture of me down here. I'm only proud of this now because I don't think I look like that, or my wife, she doesn't look like that either. The picture there of the belt, Karen and I were on vacation in Florida. This is one of my old belts, and she was able to get into the belt. And this is the picture many of you have seen, the one of the wedding. The one August 2007 is my youngest daughter 4 years ago, and that's the picture here, over 200 pounds lighter. Okay, how to incorporate a metabolic syndrome and HCG weight loss program into your practice. Now, this is my favorite shot. The editor from New You magazine, JP, said to me, Mayor, I'm putting you on the cover of New You magazine. And so I get the magazine about 5, 6 months ago, and I'm looking at it, and I said, boy, I don't think I look like that enhanced woman. And he said, oh, no, you're on the cover. HCG weight loss, that works. But this was a cover in California that was on a few months ago, and we got quite a few doctors in California who are involved with our HCG program. And this is important. This is really important. If you have a chance, and I'll send you the link, or you can just look at Lancet. It was in August. They came out with about a 300-page, 4-part series on the future of obesity in this country. And one of the parts is phenomenal because it's something that I've kind of thought about for a bunch of months. Health and nutrition organizations have perpetuated the myth that a reduction of food intake of 2,000 joules, now I had to look up, I didn't remember what joules were, but a joule is about, 2,000 joules is about 500 calories, will lead, but listen to it first, health and nutrition organizations have perpetuated the myth. Now, I love that. I mean, as being a nihilist myself, you know, the idea that a reputable journal would say that everything that they've told us is myth really makes me feel good. That a reduction of 2,000 joules or 500 calories will lead to a steady rate of weight loss of about a pound a week, 0.5 kilogram, because this static weight loss rule does not account for dynamic physiological adaptation that occur with decreased body weight. Its widespread use at both the individual and population levels has led to drastically overestimated expectation for weight loss. Now, it didn't go far away. There's no weight loss. There's none. The whole world is getting fatter. I mean, it's not like there's no success from one year to the next. We're worse. But you still hear the same nonsense being perpetuated, 1,200 calorie diets, you know, and none of that works. And I'm going to give you a little bit of reasoning why it doesn't work. And they figured it out. You know, but what they didn't realize, there's an answer to that. The more weight you lose, and I'll give you kind of a preview of the next 10 or 15 minutes, the more weight you lose in any calorie-restricted program, I don't care what the calorie-restricted program is, the more muscle you're going to lose. And the more muscle you lose, the more the body's going to feel it's in a starvation mode, and it's going to crave to put on weight. Something that I don't have in here, but it's important. I have about 10 or 12 patients who came to me who had gastric bypass or lap band surgery. Everyone's been a failure. Every single one. And that means I've been a failure 12 times. And to the point that I didn't want to take anyone else on. It's a small number of people who have come to me, and every one of these people had lost more than 130, 140 pounds and put every bit of the weight back on. And few weeks ago, I had someone who would put about 45 pounds back on, and she was someone I delivered 3 children for about 20 years ago, 20, 22, and 24 maybe. She said, Mayor, you've got to help me because I know this is going to work, and I know that you've had no success, and I know you've told everybody because I already heard the word has been out. I had 15 people in my support group after we had the gastric bypass 6 years ago. I'm the only one who hasn't put all the weight back on. It seems that you can do it for 3, 4, 5 years, and all of a sudden she said to me, you get an insatiable hunger, insatiable. You can't stop eating. Insatiable. And these are just graphs showing you what the United States looks like in the whole, and this is 91, this is 2004, 6, everything's just getting worse. Obesity trends, everything is getting worse. And I don't believe this even, because if we use the definition of obesity of a BMI of more than 30, there's no way, let's go here, 2010, there's no way that only 35%. I think 35% of people have a BMI under 30. I think the numbers are reversed. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Is it high fructose corn syrup that's caused it? Maybe. And there's no question about it that the increase in high fructose corn syrup has been correlated, with increased obesity in the country and the world. But we have to be careful of those things. As a statistician, we should know that correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. If we let government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in as sorry a state as are the souls of those who live under tyranny. Metabolic syndrome, and this is important, the American Heart Association, one of the few things I agree with them on, says that the 2 biggest problems are abdominal obesity and insulin resistance. And one of my dear friends, he calls it diabesity. His contention is any person who's overweight has diabesity, which is diabetes and obesity. It's just a matter of how you're going to measure it. The criteria for metabolic syndrome, and I've added a couple that I find very interesting. I've added deficiency of vitamin D, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and multivitamins with minerals, increased neck size, and this is not, and carotid artery plaque, it's not kind of an independent factor, but it's kind of like high triglycerides, high cholesterol. It's something that may point you in that direction. It's something I've gotten very fascinated with over the last 2 or 3 months. But I think that's why the HCG program has to be with the supplement program, because there's evidence, and I just brought a little of the studies, but anyone who wants, I can send them the studies on the digestive enzymes, multivitamins, and vitamin D and probiotics. And in our company, we put probiotics in almost everything. Our multivitamin is probiotics, our vitamin D is probiotics, our digestive enzymes is probiotics. About 20 years ago, a doctor, an internist, who took atenolol, the blood pressure medication, and he put it into a capsule. He must have had a compounding pharmacist did it for him. And in half of the capsules, he put probiotics, and the other half, he didn't have, just had the atenolol. And the blend was almost exactly the blend that we use. We use the same blend everywhere. If it works one place, what the heck, I'm not going to change. And at the end of 2 months, the atenolol with probiotics had 15% lower blood pressure. These are all people with chronic hypertension. We're 15% lower than the other group. Well, that just blew me away. It just tells me that the probiotics not only has its own intrinsic value of health benefits, but if you put it together with something, it will enhance the, well, I don't know if it enhances the potency, but it surely, well, most probably his studies show that it enhanced potency. And so it's most probably it enhances potency and absorption. Metabolic syndrome, one thing here on this chart, I'm still trying to get there. A simple litmus test. For men, if your waist is over 40, and women, if it's over 35. It's a litmus test. I mean, it's not, or I'll give you one more, and that is your waist should be half of your height. And once again, these are just kind of very simple type of things to look at. And I've always wanted my waist to be 36. I'm 6 inches away from there. 20 inches less than I was 2 years ago, but that's my goal, to get to 36. I'm 6 feet tall, and that would be, that means I wouldn't have metabolic syndrome, at least in that definition. Neck circumference, another very fascinating thing. This was a study that was done by Dr. Sarah Rosner-Priest, and she showed that the neck was an independent factor for metabolic syndrome. Independent, which means it was independent of abdominal adiposity. The program: pharmaceutical sublingual HCG, metabolic blood test, body composition analysis, basal metabolic rate, cardiovascular studies, nutraceuticals, medical supervision, and education. The last one is really important. It's really, really important. So what is this program different from every other program? We're not going to let you go because I have a vested interest to get thousands and thousands of doctors, help them have a program. What's the most difficult thing for the doctor to do? If the doctor themselves doesn't need any help, it means that they aren't walking in the shoes, but they could talk the talk, which is just as fine, you know. But I think that we want to keep it in the medical realm. We want to be doing blood tests. We want to do assessments, you know, on our patients to see that they're getting better, not only weight-wise, but how are we changing their body composition, you know. And so I think that and I can tell you what our experience has been. We see patients every 2 weeks for the first 2 months of the program. And those who've come every 2 weeks, virtually 100% success. You know, now we have a lot of people who don't come every 2 weeks and are successful, but it's almost like if you want to guarantee success, come every 2 weeks. You know, and it's only for 4, 5, 6 visits, you know. Here's the whole program here in a nutshell. Probiotics with FOS, Betinade, that's our chewable multivitamin, chewable digestive enzyme probiotics. Multipro, that's our multivitamin with probiotics, and about 2,000 units of D. Pro D, that's our 5,000 unit of vitamin D with probiotics. 1 month supply of prescription HCG, and there's a 2-month supply of the supplements. You say, well, why do you have 2 months of supplements and 1 month of HCG? Because that's the program. Our program is 30 days on, 30 days off, and so when you're off, you still take the supplements, but you're not taking the HCG. And our metabolic booklet. We will help you. You can call us day or night. Okay, let's go to HCG now. Uses your, and here's some of the claims. Uses your fat stores as energy. Well, does it use it as energy? I'm not sure one way or the other, but it really seems that way. You'll see from some of the body composition. Burns your belly fat? Well, if it isn't burning your belly fat, what's causing people to lose an enormous amount of inches from their belly? Burns more fat than muscle. We can absolutely show that. You are able to maintain a very low calorie diet, 500 calories per day, not even a question. You know, you will have an increase in energy, absolutely. You will lose pounds and inches, absolutely. Resets your metabolic rate? I don't know. I don't know if it resets the metabolic rate. That's what Dr. Simeon said. It worked with the hypothalamus, but I've never seen a hypothalamus. You know, keeps leptin levels from declining, maybe. Reduces carotid artery plaque. It's a theory. This is really kind of an overview with a couple of the scientific points that I want to bring out. 30 days off of HCG, 500 calories of the HCG, no breakfast, large, huge salads, apple or half a grapefruit for dessert, very low carbohydrate and fats during on phase. Drink water at least half your body weight in ounces. Carbohydrates only from apples and grapefruits, minimal amount of exercise, and I'll explain that. Homefirst Metabolic Syndrome and Weight Loss Forum. We got forums, Skypes, and webinars, and wherever you'd like. Here's a couple of questions, you know, and they'll be a little bit hard to read this tonight. Opponents believe not only are the injections risky, but the diet only works because most of the dieters are only eating about 500 calories a day. And I've got a great paper written by Dr. Simeon about 30 years ago, where he talks about that you may lose more weight if you do 500 calories without HCG. But the real issue is, what's your body composition? Let's say you lose 20 pounds. How much fat did you lose? How much muscle did you lose? And I now have some of that data to show with all the calorie-restricted programs how much, it's between 30 and 50% of what they lose is muscle. And that was in the Lancet, kind of hinted at it. But I called 3 gastric bypass surgeons, and they said 35 to 40%. Well, all those numbers are staggering. Injections with sublingual pharmaceutical HCG, of course. Oh, we don't do injections with pharmaceutical HCG, so the injection can't be risky, maybe what's in it. Of course, if you eat 500 calories a day, you lose weight. The real question is, what is the composition of that weight? Decades of theory seem to suggest that people who diet by consuming 500 calories a day typically regain most or all of the weight once the diet ends. Absolutely true. 99% of people. I mean, what a great business. I mean, this is like the flu shot, worthless, but they give it every year. Every year they hype it. In fact, they don't even have to spend any money hyping it because you and I pay for it with the government ads, you know. And I'll tell you something, I just did a webinar on flu vaccine. I'm not sure, I have to look at the slide there. You have to go back 8 or 9 years. There wasn't a single case of death in children under 5 from flu up until about 8 or 9 years ago. We now have hundreds and hundreds, all of them vaccinated. Does the flu shot cause this problem? I don't know, but it's sure something to look into. Some experts are also leery of the HCG diet's potential to cause health problems. Eating less than 500 calories can make it hard. And I didn't believe I could do it. I really didn't believe I could do it. It turned out to be easy. The only thing I'm sad about is of the approximately 1,000 patients I have 900 women and 100 men. You know, and the men do phenomenally well. So I keep encouraging men to come to me, you know. And the men absolutely have no hunger whatsoever. You know, there's always exceptions to every rule. The women have some hunger. Here's my theory, and maybe I'm going to get into real trouble if I say this, you know. Men don't crave. We don't crave. We just like to eat. Women crave. You know, someone asked me recently, one of my patients, Doc, what do you miss that you haven't eaten in the last 2 years? I thought about it, and I couldn't even think of what it was. And then I came up, popcorn. I miss when I go to the movies that I love popcorn. What is body composition analysis? Is anyone in their office doing body composition analysis right now? Oh, okay, that's a good number. I mean, this I learned from all my chiropractic friends. I didn't really know what it was. I kept thinking of calipers. I kept thinking of dunking people in the water. You know, I really had no idea what it was. Body composition analysis using BIA. BIA is bioimpedance analysis. It's a little machine where you put 2 electrodes on your foot and 2 electrodes in your hand. It completes a circuit with a 9-volt battery. In about 5 seconds, it gives you a reading, a resistance, and a reactance. You plug it into a formula, and you get a breakdown of body fat, body muscle, body water, and even more impressive, resting metabolic rate. We'll show you that in a minute. What is BIA? Don't worry about reading a lot of it, just the first. Bioelectrical impedance analysis is the study of the electrical properties of biological material and its change over time. We're able to show with that, when you send this little pulse through, you're able to, it can tell you which is fat, muscle, and water, and it works when they compare it to the body scanners, I'm trying to think what, it's quite accurate, about 95, 96% the same. And then we're not looking to something it doesn't have to be that precise. We just have to be very close to it truly is better than calipers. It's almost as good as dunking some of the water and spending hundreds of hours to do that. Basal metabolic rate, the other part of this, is the theoretical number of calories that you can eat in order not to gain or lose weight. Your BMR, or basal metabolic rate, is the energy measured in calories expended by the body at rest to maintain normal body functions. This will turn out to be real, real important. This is something I knew nothing about even a couple months ago. And here's why it's so important. A pound of muscle burns approximately 30 calories per day. And here's some of the studies that go along with it. At Tufts, they did that. They're doing all these 30, 35 calories a day. A pound of fat burns no calories. This is really important, which means if you can find a way of burning fat without burning muscle, you've got some really good stuff going on. And the HCG, if you look at the top there, burns 3 to 10. And I'll show you the 3 to 10. I mean, I've got now 1,000 cases like this, so it's not like it's... The more fat you lose without muscle will result in smaller changes in BMR, therefore requiring smaller change in daily calories. I know I'm going fast, and this is, believe me, it's not rocket science, but you'll see in a few minutes what it means. Okay, now let's look here. This is actually the report, or one of the pages of the report. Here's a 53-year-old female, you look in the top here, who is 5'5", and she now weighs 164 pounds. She started at 213 pounds, and this is January 4th, and this is, you can see how short a period of time this is also, from January 4th to February 28th. She lost 39.5 pounds, 27.3 pounds fat, and that corresponds to 67% of what she lost is fat. And let's drop down to look at lean density mass, LDM. Rudy Littke is the 76-year-old medical engineer who designed this machine. It's about 30 years old and it's got a lot of modifications. I went up to Detroit to visit with him. Well, if I was happy before, and I bought it on my chiropractor's advice. He said, Mayor, you're going to find something really, really exciting. And he's taught me more and more, and you'll see a couple of more things that we do with this. If you take a look here, you lost 4 liters of water. That's about 8 pounds. And, but even more impressive, intracellular water is not the problem. Look at the extracellular water. The person lost 2.2 pounds of extracellular water. That's kind of impressive too, but I'm kind of focused on fat loss and muscle loss. Another 302 pounds, now 254 pounds, 48 pounds weight loss. The bottom of the slide got cut off, but you'll see the person lost 3.1 pounds of lean density mass, which means it's 7 or 8% muscle loss. I can give you 1,000 like this. I'd love to do it on people on other diets. That's the only thing I'm missing, to see if someone's on Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, or Nutrisystem, to kind of see how that compares. Here's a core unit, and we actually have one. One of my friends gave it to me, who's never used it, and we send it back to them. And using indirect calorimetry, that means you breathe in, breathe out, it gives you what the resting metabolic rate is. And I'll go over why that's so important. Here's the same person we saw just a minute ago, not the one sitting in the chair. This is the person who lost the 34 pounds. And so now we have a check on the muscle loss. And the reason I personally got the core machine, and is I want to see something a little bit more scientific to show the change in basal metabolic rate. So if I'm right, that someone, take a look at the bottom graph here, the bottom line right here. The person started off at 1,625 calories, and now they're 1,471. That's a 35-pound weight loss, which means, translated into English, and she lost 35 pounds, but she only has about 100 calorie difference in what she has to eat. That's a slice of bread, which I don't eat, but that's a big apple. I mean, that's incredible, 35 pounds. As opposed to if she would have been on any other calorie-restricted diet, her basal metabolic rate would be 1,200, 1,100. Now you're talking about approaching a starvation point, or not starvation, approaching a diet in order just to maintain the weight loss. That's the key in my mind, why the HCG, what's different. It's the fat loss versus the muscle loss that makes the whole difference here. And we're going to be doing it with the core machine, a little bit more scientific, takes a little bit more time, but I'm going to surely present that data also. There's a formula that's put in. This all comes together just by putting those two numbers. And I can present you the paper if you want of the formula. It's some 7 different doctors who spend years putting the formula together, how to move the resistance and reactance to show basal metabolic rate. Now, what do we do in our office? Well, we have half women doctors, so and my wife was, why don't you call them men doctors? He said half men doctors and half women doctors. And here's what we typically do at an initial visit: blood pressure, BMI, biometric measurements, history, physical, blood draw, body composition with the BIA, like I showed you, resting metabolic rate. We're starting to experiment with vascular studies, and I'll have more about that later. And maybe the most important thing we do after we've done all the blood drawing and the exams, we do educations in groups of about 4 or 5. And we'll kind of like almost be an assembly line, and I have a great deal of fun, because my daughter, myself, we have 2 medical assistants. With an assembly line, we will examine everyone, do the blood, and I will personally tell everyone you're a guinea pig, and you'll be happy to be a guinea pig. I'm a guinea pig, and then we bring them into the room and we have a group session. We started off not doing group sessions. We started doing individual, and I said to myself, would I have come to a doctor who put me in a group with 4 or 5 other overweight people? And my wife said to me, you damn well would have if you knew it would work, you know. And it's been phenomenal. It's been so phenomenal because the camaraderie that we develop, and we will run that as long as it takes. You know, it's the last thing of the day, and sometimes they'll go to 7, 8 o'clock at night, which is fine. Blood draw. We do 4 blood tests, and a lot of doctors doing more, but this is the minimal that I recommend everyone: the vitamin D, the metabolic panel, A1C lipid panel. We pay $40 for these tests. If you're paying more than that, I recommend you go see the wonderful people at Access Labs. They're right here in the, and this is the panel, the code. They know me real well. I've referred many doctors to them. I get $45 commission for every $40. So I mean, I'm teasing obviously because, you know, they do a lot more stuff, you know, but this, I have not found it cheaper. And if you have it cheaper, that's fine. Blue Cross Blue Shield pays $75. You know, so that's one of the reasons why you want to draw blood yourself. Well, you want to make the $30 or so, but forget about that. Even if someone doesn't have an insurance, the last thing you need is to send them to Quest or LabCorp. They will charge you $250 for these tests. Here's our educational session. And these are all the people very intently listening, and I'm holding a book. This is our booklet, and we have, it comes with each kit, and it's very similar to Dr. Simeon's, a little bit modified to make it a little bit easier to read, you know, and it's about 20 pages, and we go through the booklet very carefully at the initial visit. Once again, we're going to give you support up the wazoo. The follow-up visits, 2 weeks later, we do the blood pressure, the measurements. We review their metabolic blood work. We draw that every 4 months. And we do the body composition. And essentially, all that comes with the BIA machine. 2-week list of review, the lipid panel, and the vascular studies. That's something new. We looked at Panasonic. We weren't happy with their machine. Now we're looking to Sinusite, you know. And so they keep coming out and doing lots of tests in our patients, so we got lots of data. This is, being an OB for so many years, I'm used to prenatal flow charts, and so we set up our metabolic clinic just like a flow chart, and so they come in, we put all the measurements in, and I have a few more to put in, so I'm going to kind of squeeze it, and I'll be happy to give anyone the template. ICDs, I'm very good at coding. We've done very well with the coding. So if anyone does insurance, or even if you don't do insurance, take insurance, you want to code it for the patient. My daughter does. We'll see 30 or 35 patients on a busy day, and she'll have the coding finished before the day is over. I mean, we don't do the coding for new patients until all the blood work comes back, because that a lot of times will be able to tell us what. Can our HCG and nutraceutical reverse arterial plaque? We'll soon find out. God willing, yes. In Argentina, they're doing a study right now with body composition. They're trying to do a formal study to show that with BIA, that you can lose more fat on the HCG program than muscle. And when I called them, and they wanted me to be part of the study, and I told them I'd be happy to, I told her about my thought. And I went to the dentist about 6 months ago, and I've been going to the same dentist for more than 25 years, as well as my wife, my children. And he looks at me and says, Mayor, you don't have a drop of plaque on your teeth, not a drop of plaque. So I said, of course, I brush my teeth 24 hours a day. No, I've known you for 25 years. You aren't changing your habits overnight. And so then my wife says she doesn't have any plaque at all. My son doesn't have any, my oldest son, my oldest daughter, and I started asking patients, and every one of them, for all practicality, tells me the plaque has disappeared from their teeth. So I called Dr. Rao, an A4M doctor, as well as his daughter. He's a retired cardiovascular surgeon. I said, Dr. Rao, actually my wife did this, and she said, Dr. Rao, if it gets rid of the plaque on your teeth, what is it doing to the plaque in your carotid and coronary arteries? Without hesitation, this is a brilliant surgeon. It'll disappear. I mean, I was shocked at the answer. I was expecting, well, we're not sure, we don't know. And so that's when I got interested in looking at vascular flow studies in the carotid. And boy, let me tell you, they're easy to do. And the new machines are so simple, you know. And so then his research, this is Dr. Paratsky in Argentina, who's doing the study on the BIA. His research assistant sends me 9 studies with about 10,000 pages in them. But the first one, dental infection as a risk factor for acute myocardial infarction. And so I start looking at some of them, and I looked at biofilm. Now, I had no clue what biofilm is. I know many of you doctors may do, but I'm just an old-time doctor. I mean, I never did internal medicine, 0. I delivered babies and took care of children. That was it. Well, biofilms is this community of microbial cells attached to a surface without a moving water, usually within a moving water environment. It's a bunch of gunk. It contains sugar, protein there. Okay. Next page, and then we're studying. Dental plaque is a type of biofilm, a colony of microorganisms suspended in fluid and mucus which builds up on the teeth. Oh my God, was I interested now. Now here's a picture of all this. This is really bad looking teeth. I mean, but look at here the list of diseases that go along with the biofilm. And you can see heart disease, everything under the sun. And there's no treatment for this. Well, at least there wasn't any treatment until now. And so now I'm starting to look at measuring the carotids, and it's an ultrasound unit, and you're looking at the thickness of the wall, and you can see if there's any plaque inside the carotid arteries. And here's just kind of a visualization of what plaque looks like. You're going to rarely see plaque inside in people who come to us. You have to have some really sick people before you have that, and that's not really typical. But you're going to see a thickening of the wall, you know, and the thickening of the wall. And I'm interested in looking at the thickness of the wall, and after 6 months, will it change? I wish I would have had mine when my neck was 22 inches. And now it's 16. I know I have absolutely perfect looking carotids and no plaque whatsoever, but what did I have 2 years ago? And so I'm very fascinated by this. This is a non-invasive procedure. It gives you another tool. It could measure the degree of inflammation in the arterial wall or the size of the plaque that may contribute to the most common cause of death in America, heart disease. A little bit of data from our clinic. 15 patients with a combined weight of 3,800 pounds. And this is a little bit old. That's why there's only 15 patients. And I haven't had a chance to update it. Average was 254 pounds. The average, they did 2.5 rounds, which means they were on, they were off for 30 days, on again and off again, and on for half a round. About 5 months on the program. The average weight loss was 30.58 pounds, lost about 12.5 pounds per round. That wasn't what impressed me with this. The average A1C was 6.4 to start with. Now, I consider now 6.5 to be overt diabetic. 5.5 to 6.5 is pre-diabetic. 6.5 and above, you're an overt diabetic, which means these 15 people were essentially all just bordering being overt diabetics. The average A1C 4 months later, 5 months later, 5.61. And you can see they're still quite big. The average person had a BMI of 40.7, so they were morbidly obese. They're still 35.3. They're still quite big. And this is just now in graphic form, the A1C changes. Maybe it's easier to see with the weight, 262 to 217. You can see that no one was thin here on this program for all practicality. Oh, and this program is interesting. You can see why there's peaks and valleys or so, because the goal, 30 days you lose weight, 30 days you have to maintain the weight. You can't lose, you can't gain. Nutraceuticals, a couple minutes on nutraceuticals, and I mentioned the 4 that I think are important with weight gain. Now, by the way, I have taken nutraceuticals for years. We've had a company for almost 10 years. Now, I didn't lose 1 ounce with probiotics, digestive enzymes, vitamin D. Maybe I was healthier. I mean, maybe that's my wife said you didn't have any other problems. You know, you need a calorie-restricted program in order to lose weight with the supplements. And you can take a look at vitamin D has less weight gain, probiotics has less weight gain. And I'm only going to talk about the vitamin D for 2 minutes. This was done by Dr. Shalimar Sibley, an endocrinologist at Minnesota. I called her up. We talked for hours on the phone. She couldn't get over this. Was an incidental finding, and one of the things, she measured vitamin D levels at the beginning of her calorie-restricted program, and she noticed that she could predict the amount of weight loss based on the starting vitamin D levels. So I called her up and I asked her, what's if someone has low levels? And everyone has low levels for the most part who hasn't been a patient of mine. 15, 18, 20. And she said, well, I don't have any data, but my guess is within 2 or 3 weeks, their levels will be significantly elevated, and their weight loss will also be accelerated. And see, when we started the program, we let people get their own supplements, do whatever they wanted, and we found that the people who were following our regimen were losing about 8 to 10% more. Now, 8 to 10% is not a massive amount, but boy, if you're going to go through a program, and instead of losing 40 pounds, you lose 45 pounds, or myself, 120 pounds as opposed to 100 pounds, and you're going to be healthier, hopefully. Apples and grapefruits. The best in the world. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. Benefits of apples, grapefruits. I got studies on the benefits of grapefruits. I never realized how much I loved apples and grapefruits. Never realized it. I mean, I would eat them occasionally. My mother is 80, early 80s. She eats a grapefruit every day. She's about 113 pounds, about 5'2". She swims every day. She fits the category why she's not overweight, as opposed to every one of her friends is at least 50 or 60 pounds overweight who are still alive. Stevia, I love stevia. Cocoa Pro, an incredible product. Please stop by our booth. You'll see it's a defatted chocolate, a lot of antioxidant properties, but forget about all that. And if you like chocolate, you're a chocoholic, here's a way of putting it on apples, grapefruits, and being totally compatible with the HCG program. Summary of everything. You lose pounds and inches. You lose less muscle than fat. You lose more fat than muscle, less muscle than fat. BMR drops ever so slightly. If you have plaque in your carotid arteries, it will be diminished. And I put question marks because we don't know this. You will reverse some or all of the elements of metabolic syndrome. How to start? Very simple. You know, you don't have to buy a BIA machine, but we sell them also, you know, and we can get about a 10% discount from what they sell on the internet from his company. But all you need is one kit. We'll sell as little as one. We'll private label if you want more, and that's got the supplements, the HCG, the sublingual. We've played around with other, we do not do injectables. And we played around with some gel, the HCG and gel. The trouble is they stuck together lots of times. We are looking at some tablets right now. We're experimenting with that. But you know, the problem is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, that's one of the problems. Do people have a hard time with this? A little bit, but you know, a little bit. But people complain. I like to complain too. We can provide you with a complete metabolic patch, beyond the machine, everything you've seen this already. I've got modules that I've done that I could send you the link to. They're on our website, but they're not visible, and everything includes everything you've heard and even more. Believe me, it's not rocket science. We'll give you support. A little bit on money, about 1 minute on money. This is important. No margin, no mission. That's what the nuns would always say. You know, they didn't tell it to me. They told it to all my Catholic friends. You know, and this is a typical profile, $150 for the initial visit, and that's relatively low because that's a $99205, but I use Blue Cross insurance rates, what we get compensated for. Lab blood work, $75, metabolic package, we charge our patients $350. Doctor cost for this whole program here is $250, and how's that? $175 for the HCG package, $40 if you use Access Lab. If it's cheaper, it'll be less than $250. So doctor's net is $360. Follow-up exams, the follow-up is now follow-up rounds, not every visit 2 weeks later. Exam $75, and that's what we get paid for. And I use Blue Cross as a standard. Metabolic package $350, doctor's cost $175, doctor's net $325. Average patient we've had is 3 rounds, lose between 40 and 50 pounds. Total cost of the patient is $1,500. Doctor cost is $500. Net per patient is $1,000. You can expect that for every new patient you have, you'll make about $1,000 net. 100 patients a year, you'll make $100,000. And I'm blown away how well this works, and we can help you run it. I hate to say a mill, it's not a mill, because the most important thing is sitting with a patient for 2 hours in a group. That's where all the knowledge, all the broad drawing and all the exams don't cause you to. I have now 30 or 40 doctors who've added about $8,000 to $10,000 a month to their practice. Thank you, everybody, and I'll be happy to take questions.